Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start today's presentation off with a question. Can anyone remember the last sign they saw before stepping into the session today? I'd nearly bet my entire life savings that nobody could. And that's because every single day we're surrounded by signs, visuals, and images that we see nearly minute to minute, and we often interpret as subconsciously. According to psychologist Will Fangite, visual perception plays a major role in our everyday life. It helps us in learning and interacting with others, and because of the ease in which we rely on perception, we tend to overlook the complexity that underpins it. So understanding how we interpret what we see can help us design and organise our visual information. That's exactly what our team is here to talk to you about today: semiotics and visual representations. Umberto Eco was a professor of Italian semiotics. He defines semiotics as everything that can be taken as a sign. A sign is something that can be taken as significantly substituting for something else. And this something else does not necessarily have to exist or actually be somewhere at the moment in which the sign stands for it. Put simply, semiotics is the study of signs. There are international and universal signs that you would see and recognise nearly everywhere around the globe. Think of things like road signs, traffic lights, bathroom signs, even the golden arches of McDonald's. And today, we're going to talk to you about some of the issues we face when dealing with signs and visual representations and why, as well as some of the solutions to help avoid misinterpretation for the audience.
Semiotics is the study surrounding the interpretation and understanding of signs and symbols. Semiotics allows us to question and discover how meaning is communicated using visual representations. Those who study semiotics also focus on the relationship between the signifier and the signified, while also examining the context of visual cues, body language, and sound. So perhaps without even realizing it, our daily lives depend on all members of society being able to decode symbols and signs. Having the ability to view and decode visual representations ensures that we are able to safely navigate social etiquette or avoid serious injuries. Signs and symbols allow us to convey complex ideas in a simple and clear manner. Because of our daily reliance on symbols and signs, for example, traffic lights, road signs, and hand gestures, it is imperative that we must fully comprehend the meaning signs and symbols are attempting to convey. So this brings us to the main issues writers and creatives may face when dealing with visual representations. Signs, symbols, and images may be interpreted differently by different individual audience members, depending on their life experience. The meaning constructed by the audience may be different from the creator's or writer's intention. As Hall suggests, meaning depends on the relationship between things in the world, people, objects, and events, real or fictional. Hall proposes that meaning is not something that just simply exists. It is created and influenced by complex communication systems that allow us to interpret signs together as a society as well as individually. Through an understanding and engagement of an image or text, an audience can construct their own meaning. It has been suggested that this process is influenced by social, economic, and cultural factors. So, for example, a young inner-city worker who only takes public transport and who has never studied road signs or taken a driving test may not understand what this symbol on the left means. However, because they speak English and understand what the letters represent on the sign on the right, they can understand the intended meaning from the sign's creator. Colours may be interpreted differently amongst different cultures, with red meaning good luck and celebration in China, while it represents mourning and death in South Africa. In ancient Europe, the colour purple was associated with royalty and wealth, while in Thailand, purple is reserved for widows to wear while mourning the death of their spouse. When people in Western society see a pentagram symbol, they may generally think of evil and Satanism. However, the symbol also means so many different things to different cultures. Seen in ancient Greece, possibly as a symbol for perfection or power. In Japanese culture, the pentagram may be considered a symbol of magical power, a diagram of overcoming the cycle of the 5 Chinese elements: earth, air, water, wood, and metal. And as a mostly non-Christian country, there is no social stigma associated with it. So because of the readers of the sign may have no background knowledge associated with the image or perhaps the context it is used in, meaning of the symbol is completely lost, or is made to be something that was not originally intended by the creator. The audience's understanding of an image not only proposes meaning within the image itself, but also reveals the social and cultural constructs that reinforce the individual's thought process and interpretations. So this just demonstrates that although the image may already be inscribed an intended meaning from the creator, the meaning is still open to interpretation from an audience. As Hall suggests, meaning does not inhere in things in the world. It is constructed, produced. It is a result of a signifying practice. Practice that produces meaning, that makes things mean.
To Amy's point, Anders Chandler argued in 1994, semiotics is not just about visuals. Modern semiotics incorporates the study of language, nonverbal communication, musical codes, system of objects, plot structures, text theory, cultural codes, mass communication, and rhetoric. Harrison echoed Chandler in 2003 when he stated, semiotic systems encompass the entire range of human practices. Before being able to determine best practice or alternative solutions to visual misinterpretation, we must first understand the breakdown of visuals. Here is an image of 3 different representations of the male and female gender. They are all conveyed in a different way and yet all have a similar meaning. To the left, we have an icon. An icon is a sign that resembles something, such as a photograph of a person or thing. An icon can be illustrative or diagrammatic, such as a non-smoking sign. In the middle, you can see an index. An index is a sign that is related to the object it represents, but not directly or in any concrete way. A primary example of an index is smoke. Where there is smoke, there is usually fire. So smoke could be considered an index of fire. In this instance, we have the shoe of a man and a woman. And finally, to the right, we have symbols. A symbol has no logical meaning between it and the object. They are a standalone graphic construct, which are treated as text or visual words because they carry a specific meaning to the interpreter. As Amy previously touched on, signs, symbols, and icons can all mean different things to different people. For example, when you look at the image on the left of this dog, what do you see? It's extremely important to understand that whilst one image may convey a certain meaning to somebody, this may not always resonate in the same way to another. For example, this image of a dog running through some grass may elicit memories of playing with an old and loved family pet to one person. But to another person, it could elicit terrible fear from a past memory of being attacked by a vicious dog. In the past, professionals have toyed with the various types of visuals they used in order to attempt to communicate their meaning in the best possible way. Should they use icons, indexes, or symbols? Perhaps a combination of both. Academics are divided when it comes to semiotic best practice. However, they all agree on one thing. When utilizing visuals, keep it simple. Ensure that it could not be misinterpreted or culturally misconstrued. Make certain you understand the social construct with which you are using the visual cue and that it's clear in its communication and intention. When creating or interpreting a visual, one must consider the following. Do I understand the message of this visual or media? Is it perhaps selling a product, teaching a moral, inciting emotion? Who made this media? Was it an individual or perhaps a group of people, a business even? This will help shape your understanding of their intention. What do the elements of the media mean? Are certain characters used, for instance? Does it tell a story? Contemplate the use of colour, the effects of hue, value, and saturation on graphics. their overall design, and the language that has been used. Are certain words larger than others, drawing a particular focal point to the image? What am I or the viewer supposed to feel as a result of the image? Is it eliciting an emotional connection? And if so, is that clear to others? And finally, is the visual clear in its communication objectives?
G'day everyone. So the most appropriate solution in interpreting and understanding semiotics and visual representations is coming to know where exactly they're coming from. So this is primarily shaped around identifying the context, and in investigating the context of a semiotic, we need to ask ourselves questions such as, what are the intentions of the symbol? What is the symbol used in relation to? And what do previous opinions suggest about the symbol? So in doing so, we are removing the focus from our personal perception, meaning our view isn't affected by previous understanding or emotions. This allows us to narrow in on the symbol itself and what it offers to the viewers. So as an example, social media is fueled by semiotics like pictures or emojis, and many of these online symbols, however, need an inquiry of context to validify the reality behind the visual display. So while a first glance approach may suggest the semiotic, no true understanding can be found prior to investigating the contextual scenario. So here's a little YouTube clip I'll just share. You don't really need to scan for it, so just play it. Yeah, so you get the picture. It's just showing how we interpret meaning through semiotics in social media. Yep. So there are key differences within areas of interpreting semiotics of various cultures and professions. So as mentioned earlier in the presentation, language itself is classified as a semiotic. So language is varied on a global level. It's like throughout different cultures, and the only realistic way of interpreting signs from an alternative language is through translation. So the industries of marketing and advertising also differ in suggested approaches. Quite simply, the primary goal of semiotics used within these industries is to sell. In retrospect, however, some modes of marketed semiotic that are funded politically or through non-for-profit aiming to produce more than a sale, though this is a rarity. And yeah, that concludes my presentation. Cheers.
So just to summarise, the best way to avoid, or at the very least minimise misinterpretation, is to completely understand the audience and the context behind the symbol, sign, or visual being used. We make our best guess of what we see based on expectations, beliefs, prior knowledge, and past experiences. In other words, we make calculated assumptions. And according to psychologist Richard Gregory, those assumptions are typically correct. However, not always. So we need to ensure that our visual is one language, and it's one language that all our audiences can understand. So we hope that you learned something from our presentation today about semiotics and visual representations, and thank you for your time.